Welcome to the Code and Bootstrapping Podcast. Mubs, you're a multiple-time Product Hunt Maker of the Year, and that makes you just about the ideal person to have on this podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Oh no, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about all of my projects.
Yeah, and actually, I wasn't in the Product Hunt orbit at all, so I wasn't aware of how many you had until I just started looking at your profile like the last week or two, and what I see is 67 products and usually 100 plus upvotes, and I even recognize some of them, like willrobotstakemyjob.com. I saw that on
Yep.
Hacker News.
Yep.
And some look ambitious, like Nuco was an online boot camp plus a kind of like a teachable clone for a vertical. Is that right?
Yeah. So some of those projects you'll see are not stuff I did on my own. There are
Right.
things that I did with some other folks. So like Nuco is actually something I built with Ben Tossell. It's now been kind of morphed into what he's doing now, which is MakerPad, which is like the no code kind of movement that's happening. That's just helping people make things without having to write any code, which is awesome. So it's a mixture of kind of fun side project things, just like an itch that I had that I wanted to scratch, and then other things that are really have a long-term plan, have a long-term vision. Like if you scroll back a little further, you'll find there's like Q.co is in there, which is something I started with some friends from England.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did that about 3 years back. Now there's about 8 people who work at Q, and Dan and Matt, who are the guys who I helped to kind of start that. Are working on it full time with a team and everything like that.
Wow.
And then you'll find even Will Robots Take My Job was something I started with someone that I met online. So I still haven't met Timitar in person or anything like that. He's from Bulgaria, so I'm in the US, so obviously not going to run into each other anywhere. And that was just something that we did in like a few weekends a couple of years back, just as a fun little side project. And yeah, I think it ended up getting something like 4 million page views in the first week that it was live.
I was one. I had a couple other ones I wanted to ask you about. Like one was For Sale by Maker. So like a two-sided marketplace competing against Flippa, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of so. That was something I built for the. So that's actually a Product Hunt kind of focus site as well. So it's actually a marketplace for people like me and hopefully people who are like listening, who have their products on Product Hunt, and then for whatever reason they decide it's not something that they want to pursue long term. So they want to sell it. So I mean, the problem with things like Flipper and stuff is that you just get like thousands and thousands of like sort of sites that are listed that really started in the last week, and somebody just put together a little template that they purchased from somewhere, threw up a site, and then kind of offered it for sale.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, and so what I wanted to do with For Sale by Maker was, well, we want to just raise the bar a little bit and say, look, if it's something that's been featured on Product Hunt, the sort of likelihood that it's kind of a quality site which has some thought behind it and some effort behind it, it's more likely that somebody will be interested in kind of purchasing that as well. So it's kind of a niche competitor to Flipper in that we're just trying to raise the sort of bar in terms of what people are actually offering out there as well. And that was something I built during. So Product Hunt had a hackathon when they released their new API, and so I built that during their hackathon.
Okay, so like you weren't like at the time you weren't even seeing it as like a super ambitious thing for a side project. It was just normal. Wow.
No, it was partially because I had a few things that I wanted to actually sell, because I was like, well, I built all these things in the past, and it would be nice just to offer them to kind of. I'm not going to work on them now, but it would be nice if somebody else just paid a small amount and kind of ran with them as well. So I was like, well, there must be a market here, right?
But you weren't thinking like you'd just create this monster that would displace Flippa or something like that.
No,
Okay.
no, because I was, like I said, it was just something that it was an itch of my own that I wanted to scratch. And then the opportunity of the hackathon occurred, and I was like, well, this is a cool thing to build in the hackathon. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I know at least through, I think 5 people have reached out to me since I've launched it and said, hey, I posted my site on for SellMyMaker, and somebody reached out and said, I'm interested to
Nice.
acquire it, and so it's working.
Cool.
I'm not really doing very much with it at this moment, but it still kind of operates itself, right? Like, people can sign in, they can list their own stuff, and it just operates all by itself.
Well, that's a whole other question of like maintaining 67 projects.
Right.
But I saw a comment on Blob Roulette by Charles Joe that was, still can't believe how fast you built stuff. And that's kind of the main question that I want to ask you for this whole podcast. It's just, how do you build stuff so fast?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's just identifying what is actually the core feature of that particular site, right? So I mean, that was really a simple, really kind of almost a one-page kind of site where basically the idea was there's so many of these Blab streams that were happening that you could kind of hop into, but which one's a cool one, which one's a fun one, and you just wanted to pick a random one to kind of appear, kind of a chat roulette kind of thing, kind of clone in that sense. So what's the core feature there? It's just like a single page that randomly shows you a blab that you could participate in.
Yeah, they should have had that built in, I think.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of the side projects I build are kind of features for applications that exist. I'm like, why is that not a feature? And then if they have an API or something like that, then I'm able to kind of hook into it. So and then even for something like for SellMyMaker, it's like, yes, I could have had the big vision of, we're going to build a Flipper, we're going to build something in the Flipper space. And if you look at Flipper and all the features that they've got and everything like that, it would take me months to build that, right? To build a complete clone of Flipper. But really, what's the core feature, right? The core feature is somebody needs to be able to list a product that they've had featured on Product Hunt. They need to be able to have a title, a URL, set how much they want to sell it for, a few simple fields, really. And then on the other side, we just need to be able to see a list of those that people have added. So really, it's it's only 4 or 5 pages that you need to build. There's some API work to integrate with Product Hunt's API to be able to pull down the information of each of the products and things like that. So just focusing on the core part of the feature of the thing that you want to build, and just kind of ignoring all of the rest. I think that's where a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle with. It's not because I don't build. I don't think I code faster than a lot of other people out there. I think there's a lot of much faster, smarter coders than I am. But where I think I'm able to kind of outperform them is like I just do less.
Yeah. Sounds like you skip or postpone a lot of things that other people would spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, I mean, because with a lot of those things, it's nice features to have, right? Like it would be nice if it did this. It would be nice if it had this feature. It would be nice if it had that page. But like, well, is it an absolute must? Like, can I launch without this page? And if the answer is yes, I do.
That's pretty near and dear to my heart, because I had a disastrous 2017, basically working on just startup on my own with completely the opposite approach, and just writing and building so much stuff before anyone saw it. So
yeah, and I think the other thing that I like to keep in mind is that obviously, as somebody who's an experienced maker, I've got a pretty good idea of what I think that particular product should have in terms of features and functionality and things like that. But really, your users are the ones that are going to tell you if you need that feature or not, right? So
right. As long as you have some.
Yeah. So what I try and do is get the bare minimum built that I think is absolutely required, and then that feature, that page, or that functionality that I think is kind of optional, I put a list out somewhere. Or when I'm speaking to people, I tell them, hey, I was thinking about building this feature as well. how important do you think that feature is? And then you kind of let them kind of tell you what your roadmap looks like as well. So yes, because you can spend 6 months working on stuff, but you might, as I'm sure you found out, that you can spend 6 months building stuff that the users don't really care about either.
Yeah. It's just wrong assumption, or maybe even if it's all stuff that people want, you still might not need all of it to start with.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
I mean, I have that experience now with Alchemist Camp. I'm still making stuff that people want, but initially, like, I was able to get some customers with surprisingly little, like basically just a YouTube channel and an email list.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it's kind of all those, yes, it'd be nice if it had this, but if it's missing it, am I not going to sign up? Am I not going to use this thing? And if the answer is no, then, and I think people, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the world has changed around us a little bit. Like, you don't need to worry about launching, because I think people still have this idea of, once I've launched it, that's my last chance to kind of find users and to grow and things like, or make that big splash that that I'm kind of looking for. And I think if you just think about launching, releasing often, so you can add more features. Every launch that you do, like putting in air quotes here, every launch that you do is an opportunity to reach out again, right? Because I think that's as kind of a developer, I find marketing really hard, right? Still, I find marketing really hard. And so my marketing becomes, I've just launched a new feature. That becomes my marketing. I can now share with Twitter and Facebook and indie hackers and everybody like that. Like, hey, I just launched this new feature of this existing product. You don't have to worry about how do I do sales and marketing. Just think about how do you incrementally improve your product, and then talk about how you have incrementally improved it as well.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed also is, like, a lot of your products that you put on Product Hunt were specifically for Product Hunt power users.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like the exact people that would be most interested in your product were there and probably upvoting it, and I can see how that would probably get things off to a faster start too.
And that was a conscious effort at the beginning. I was like, well, who's the best audience to launch stuff on Product Hunt for? People who use Product Hunt, right? So
I'm kind of feeling that way myself for indie hackers at this point.
Right.
Maybe I should just make a different thing. I wouldn't quit making Alchemist Camp by any means, but it seems like there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think it depends on kind of why you're building stuff as well, right? Like when I first started on this kind of stint of building all these projects and things like that, I wasn't really focused on like building a sustainable business. I wasn't worried about like finding something that would replace my full-time job or anything like that. I was just having some fun in weekends and evenings, just making something really cool and interesting. And so I wasn't too worried about, how much can I charge users for this? Can I build this into something that's going to get to 1, 2, 5K MMR, or sort of all that kind of stuff? Because I wanted to build an audience. That's kind of what I was kind of focused on at the beginning. I wanted to talk to people about how I build things and why I build things and kind of how I build things. And so at that point, my focus was like, okay, let's find an audience that I can tap into. Product Hunt was the perfect opportunity kind of at the time. Now I'm starting to think a little bit more about, okay, now, what do I want to build out of these side projects that I'm working on now? And now I do think a little bit more about what's the industry that I'm kind of exploring, what's the target user, and, where can I find those people as well.
Yeah. Still, though, you've done so many products, and I'm assuming a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but many of them have been web apps, basically.
I think almost all of them, yeah.
Yeah. So given all of that, like, have you put any effort into automating any of it, or do you use something like Laravel Spark, or have you made your own equivalent, anything like that?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've used Spark on a few of them. I mean, if it's like a SaaS product which has recurring revenue and sort of those kind of things, absolutely, I've used Spark. I mean, I do use a lot of the packages that are kind of available for Laravel, because a lot of the apps I built have been based on Laravel. So you'll see some of them use like Twitter for social media account management and stuff like that. So I use Socialite, which is a package that kind of just makes that really easy and kind of stuff like that. So there's a whole ecosystem that I was able to tap into that kind of made a lot of those things a lot easier. I didn't have to build them all from scratch, essentially. And so I've stayed away from trying to build my own, because that becomes kind of a project unto itself, because then you have to maintain
Right.
that, and then so it's like, am I building the thing, or am I building the thing to build the thing? And so and I found as well, yeah. Well, and plus I find that things still are really evolving really fast, right? Like, I mean, every time you start something, Stripe has a new feature, and you have to update for that, and then Twitter changes their API, and you have to account for that, and Facebook changes their API, and you have to account for that, and so every time it kind of almost feels like it's actually faster to almost either use a package that somebody else is maintaining, because they've taken all the work on to kind of maintain the package, or just start from scratch, and kind of, if that's faster, then that's faster. And again, if you focus in on like what's the core, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff that I launched, it was like, well, let's not even worry about users signing up and subscribing and all that kind of stuff, because they don't need to use the service, right? Like, if we get enough of an audience and they come back every day and they want to use it every day, we can add that stuff afterwards as well.
For sure. And I actually did the same thing. That seems like you're very pragmatic about it, and I could see that speeding stuff up. Let me think. So what are the other things? So I often don't worry too much about UX, or UX I do, but not UI at the very beginning. If you're focused on Product Hunt, you probably can't do that, because they're like very design focused.
I mean, to some degree, yeah. I mean, you kind of do. I mean, a lot of the projects I built, like I said, I have been with other people, and so part of the rest of the team is people who are able to make the websites look really nice. So they kind of handle the design and marketing and sales end of things, and I do kind of all the back end and the front end as well, but the more of the coding end of things. And in the past, I mean, I've been quite open. I've just went to bootstrap.com and purchased the theme and just integrated that. I mean, there's plenty of ways to make a website look nice. It's not going to be 100% unique or anything like that, but I don't think it has to. I mean, if you look at the popular sites now, I mean, they will basically look the same. They've all got the same. They've got the same kind of illustration. The fonts are all kind of, maybe there's the sort of Q looks a little bit different, but they're using the same sans serif font basically style. I mean, everything basically looks the same. Obviously, if you can afford to pay somebody to do custom illustrations for you, fantastic. If you can't, there's Andr and free. I think there's free illustrations.com as well now, and I think Icons 8 has a good library of free vector graphics as well. I mean, so you can make it look pretty nice without having to do a lot of work, or even knowing really how to do design itself.
So you said Andr? That's a service for making illustrations?
It's Andr.co, and they have I think like 150 kind of like pre-made illustrations that you can customize the colors on and kind of things like that. So like if you have a kind of if you want to have a picture of two people having a chat, you can kind of just do a search on that, or if it's like somebody looking at their iPhone, or somebody looking at a phone, those kind of standard kind of those kind of things that you see on kind of all these SaaS landing pages as well.
Well, I'll throw that in the notes. Well, I know you've got this is your morning. It's my night, so I know you've got stuff to do. But thank you for coming on. And could you tell us a bit about Pod Hunt, since that's what you're
Oh,
working on? And I figure should let
yeah,
everybody know about it. And in fact,
yeah.
actually, I hate to. I'm going to interrupt
No,
for a second about that, but
it's okay.
I've got to say, like, I had kind of not thought about it too much because I've been on a big kick of like listening to older podcasts.
Uh-huh.
But I just realized, like, making podcasts myself, there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be putting every single one of them on Pod Hunt.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, Pod Hunt is it's just like
Or
I'm
at
like
least
I'm
the ones I like.
absolutely that's the idea. So I mean, the sort of I've been a big fan of podcasting for a long time. I built sort of other sites that are kind of in that space, and I've been listening to podcasts for 10 or so years now on and off. And yeah, I was running into the same kind of issues. Like I was trying to find something new to listen to, and when you look at the sort of the sort of top blog, the sort of top podcasts and things, you basically see all the same top 100, top 200
Right, yeah.
podcasts. It's all the same, Conan O'Brien, Joe Rogan, NPR stuff, sort of all of that kind of thing. And so I think the idea for Pod Hunt actually came around from Product Hunt as well, because they used to have a podcast category on Product
Oh,
Hunt. They
okay.
also used to have a video game category and a books category as well, where you could just submit all these other things. And there was a separate landing page essentially just for that kind of stuff. Eventually, they shut it down because they wanted to obviously stay focused on on kind of applications and kind of things like that instead. And so they had a similar feature, but it wasn't really focused on podcasting. So there wasn't the idea of a podcast, and it was just kind of thrown into just the same way that Product Hunt works as well. But I really like the idea of the daily leaderboard. I think that was the thing that really made it stand out. And so when I spoke to a few friends about it too, who used to like that feature on Product Hunt as well. We started talking about, well, what if we made a standalone service that kind of was more focused on podcasting, so we could really focus it down with the UI and the UX around how you organize podcasts and kind of things like that. So it's basically just a Product Hunt kind of thing where you kind of submit individual episodes. Though I think that's the other major thing
Yeah.
in terms of what's out there now, is rather than focusing on like, I like the Joe Rogan experience, or I like how that's built on NPR, rather than focusing on the whole podcast, you can say this was a really awesome episode from this podcast, and that's the one that you should listen to. Especially now that some of these podcasts have 500, 1,000, so episodes now. You can't listen to all of those, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you might like scientists, but not MMA finders, or vice versa. Right. So
exactly. Yeah. So finding the sort of a specific finding the sort of specific episodes that, and it may be that normally you wouldn't listen to anything about sort of MMA, but Joe Rogan might be talking to somebody who is an MMA fighter, but he's not really talking about MMA. He's talking about his life story, and it might still be interesting, right? So that's why we focus in on the individual episode, because you want to know what that episode is about and kind of what the focus of that episode is. So every day we have a leaderboard where people can come and they can submit the episodes that they've heard recently that they thought they were awesome, and then other people can upvote those episodes as well. So you can come to the website every day, see a new, fresh list of episodes that other people have thought were interesting, and hopefully you'll find something new to listen to as well.
So I have it open right now, the podhunt.app, and I see 6 episodes yesterday that are listed. Is it right now? Is that all of them? Like, do they all show up, or is there an overflow somewhere else?
So typically it's usually, so it's still things, because we're only about 2 months old, so things are still pretty new, and so yes, we get somewhere between 5 or 6 episodes a day. I think the peak one was about 13 that we had one day in the past. I mean, it kind of depends on what the release cycle looks like too, because it was a holiday week here in the States, so I don't think as many podcasts came out this week, or at least have come out this week, as they would normally be as well. So you'll see some days on the weekends, especially where there's only 2 or 3 new episodes, but you'll see some days, usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays are usually the sort of heavy days, because that's when people publish a lot of their new episodes as well. So like I said, we can get any from 10 to 13 submissions normally on a Tuesday, but I think, like I said, because it was a holiday here this week, things aren't quite as active as they are normally.
Well, I will submit this one. So thanks
Awesome.
again for all your time, and everybody check out podhunt.app. And what's your Twitter?
It's my full name, which is at Mubashar Iqbal.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.